Hi guys, welcome to another episode of AJAWI TV, where we discuss architectural and construction related topics. I'm AJAWI, and for today, we'll be talking to the NHT. Yes, the NHT. Imagine walking into your first home, paid for, you're now having your mortgage, and things are going great for you, right? We want to discuss that process in this video today, right? We want to know what are the things that we need to do, what are the things that we need to know in order to make that happen for you and for me as well. All right, so without any further ado, let's head into this video. Alright guys, so before I start this video, click the like, click the subscribe, click the notification bell, click the share button, right? So that you can be notified when I have new videos and you can help share this information with other people and help this channel grow. Alright? Thanks to those that are actually a part of my Patreon page. You are helping to create content just like this one. So I want to say big up to you. Thank you. Thank you for helping me along this journey of edifying people just like you and just like me. All right. So thanks, and let's head into this video. All right. All right. So good morning, Mr. Dwayne Berbick. We're having Mr. Dwayne Berbick from the NHT today. And I just want to start by saying, Mr. Berbick, I really appreciate you taking the time out to come and really speak to us and our audience. So, would you like to introduce yourself further?
No, not really. Just to say thanks very much to you for the opportunity to share with you and to share with your audience. I know it took a little while to arrange, but happy that we're able to make it possible.
All right, and Mr. Berbick is from the NHT, and your manager for the public relations. Could you clarify a little bit?
They call it corporate and public affairs, but it's media relations, it's stakeholder relations, and everything else that nobody wants to do.
All right, so I want to say thank you for having us. All right, so a little background. What we really do is we're a YouTube channel that try to give information to Jamaicans living in Jamaica, and most importantly those living overseas who want to come back to Jamaica, and we are trying to give information that will help them to return to Jamaica safely and for them to be reintegrated safely within our society, right? And the question that we have been asked, right, by our followers is, how do Jamaicans living in Jamaica or those that are living overseas go about acquiring property through the NHT? What really is the process of doing so?
All right. Let me start at the beginning. Firstly, to be able to benefit from the NHT and benefit as it relates to take up one of our loan products, one has to firstly be a contributor, and one has to be contributing to the NHT for a minimum of 52 weeks, which is just about a year. Well, not just about, it's a year. 52 weeks before they're able to take up a loan from us. And the other requirements are that the individual has to be between the ages of 18 and 65. And actually, we've just had an amendment to that. So the individual can now be between the ages of 18 and 70. And the other requirement, of course, remember it's a loan. So we are actually looking at your ability to repay as well. Okay. So it's 52 weeks for Jamaicans at home, living and working in Jamaica. For individuals overseas, it's a little bit different. they register as what we call voluntary contributors. So when you're in Jamaica, you probably work with a company that makes NHT payments on your behalf, or you're self-employed and you make the payments on behalf of contributions. When you're overseas now and you're living overseas either as a permanent resident, as a citizen, but you have your Jamaican ties, then making your NHT contributions is not mandatory, it's optional, which is why we call these individuals voluntary contributors, because they choose to do so.
Oh, okay.
So for voluntary contributors now, they have to make NHT contributions for 2 years before being eligible for a loan. We understand though that some individuals perhaps started the process before leaving Jamaica, were making contributions before leaving Jamaica. So if in fact that you would have paid for at least a year before leaving Jamaica, then it would only be 1 additional year. But if you're a first-time contributor and you're living overseas, then it's 2 years.
Oh, okay. And when I come in to the NHT, what should I really bring with me in order to help that process along? What are the documents that I really need?
One of the processes: registration or accessing a loan.
Well, accessing the loan.
Accessing a loan, we look for your basic demographic data. We want your identification, we want your TRN, we want your NIS. We have to ensure that Andre is Andre, and we have to ensure that Dwayne is Dwayne. If you're employed to a company, then we want to see about 3 months payslips, just to see a pattern in what your income is like, what your expenses are like as well, and to ensure that you're in a position to service the loan. If you're self-employed, then we probably look at a bank statement covering a 6-month period that looks at what the flow of cash in and out of the account looks like. Those are the basic general documents that we're looking for. Some additional documents now may be required based on the type of loan that you're taking. So say, for example, you're buying something on the open market. We would want to see a valuation report for the property, because we have to ensure that it's value for money and you're not wasting money, So a sale agreement, there's a vendor, you're the buyer. We want to see the terms of those that sale agreement to ensure that, the process is above board and that we don't start the purchase midway there's any challenge that results in things falling through. Also, we require surveyor's ID as well. We have to ensure that there are no breaches, there are no encroachments, that Fort Park Boulevard is actually Fort Park Boulevard, and I Park Boulevard. And then later on, we realize, when a title comes into place, that the property you think you purchased is actually not the property. So that's another piece of document that we're looking at as well. If you're doing construction, then we want to, of course, ensure that there's a registered title for the land that you want to do the construction on. We also want to ensure that there's a building plan in place, and not just any building plan, but an approved building plan by the municipal corporation, to ensure that you're building within, or what you propose to put there is in the ambits of the law, and also to ensure that what you say you're going to build, at the end of the day, we have to check to ensure that
it's actually what you build.
You say you're going to build a 2-bedroom house, it's an actual 2-bedroom house, 3-bedroom instead, and you're not able to account for the funds that you would have borrowed. So based on the loan product and based on the home ownership goal or activity that the individual is undertaking, then we may require different sets of documents.
And to really, I'm going to deviate a little. How important is a bill of quantities to the NHT when it comes on to applicants getting their loan and actually doing construction? Because the problem that I find in the industry is that nobody appreciates the fact that you need a bill of quantities when you're building. and they don't understand that, hey, if you're going to do something, you need a roadmap, and your bill of quantities is a part of your roadmap to get where you want to go. So how important is that to the NHT?
It's very important because it's that document that we use to determine how much funds we lend and how much funds we lend at a particular point along the journey. So the maximum amount an individual gets if they're undertaking construction on their land is $6.5 million. But the NHT doesn't make that $6.5 million available to you up front. We release it in tranches, and it's to do exactly what you're pointing out, Andre.
Yeah.
So we will say, all right, give us a scope. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Give us a bill of quantities. What will this cost? And then we know that, okay, stage 1 of the construction should cover foundation and whatever else, and it should cost
up the floor level, and it should cost extra.
Yeah. Your language, you can explain it much better than me. And phase 2 should cover X amount, and this is what it entails, this is what it will cost. And what we do in the construction process is to assign a project officer. The project officer is not your contractor, he's not your project manager. He really is just a quality control person. That the NHT lends you $1 million in the first tranche, and the first tranche is supposed to cover, as you rightly said earlier, up to floor level. That when the project officer goes, the project officer is seeing up to floor level. And when he gets to tranche 2, and he says, okay, this is supposed to cover the first ground floor. Yeah. And he goes again, he's making sure that you got $1 million, you got $2 million, it was supposed to do X, Y, Z.
And it does X, Y, Z.
Because otherwise, then that's a breach in the agreement, and we reserve the right to pause construction there, and you would have to account for, okay, we've made X amount of funds available to you already. You know, what have you done with it? And you can't tell me at that time that, you know, you thought it was going to be 2,000 blocks that you need, but as it turns out, it's really 3,000 blocks. And, you know, we can't accept that. You know, we can't accept that. Granted, you know, there will be some variation.
Yeah, but it shouldn't be all over the place.
It shouldn't be that vast. And I'll use the opportunity to always say to our prospective mortgagors, ensure you hire qualified, competent individuals, because it could just be problematic for you down the road. And your project officer is one of those persons who will readily spot that, okay, you have a problem, because what your bill of quantities says, what your building plan says, this is not what your contractor is doing. So you need to go sit down and have a discussion with him, and we're not going to make any more funds available until we are confident.
So has the NHT ever given a stop order though?
It has, yes. Wow. the NHT has, yes. Remember, Andre, you make your contributions, I make my contributions. When we look at how the NHT lends an individual, if I should add up my contributions, it don't come up to the 6.5 the NHT has lent me. So what it means is that in addition to my contributions, the NHT is also lending me somebody else's contributions. And so we have to be good stewards of those funds, you know, to ensure that, you know, when a borrower comes in good faith and say they're going to build a house, that is actually going towards building a house. And if we're not seeing that happening, then what's happening here?
Yeah. Yes. All right, so the next question asked was, what is the income minimum to get a 6.5 million, the max 6.5 million loan? What do I have to be making?
It's not just about income. In determining the 6.5, we would have looked at two factors. We would have looked at income, and we would have also looked at age. So the NHT has different income bands. The lowest being minimum wage to $15,000 weekly. Those individuals get loans at 0%. between $15,001 and $30,000 weekly, those individuals get their loans at 0% as well. Between $30,001 and $42,000 weekly, those individuals get their loans at 2%, and above $42,001, those individuals get the highest interest rate of 4%. So when we look at that, we look at the income, we apply the necessary interest rate, and we also look at your age. And that's what's going to ultimately determine how much you get to borrow. So income is one factor, age is the other. Age being an important factor because the younger an individual has, the more time, the younger an individual is rather, the more time they have to repay a loan. So we have a 40-year mortgage tenure up until age 70. 40 years. Yes, 40 years. So if an individual comes to us at age 30, they have the full 40 years versus someone who comes to us at 50, who only has 20 years now. And when we look at 20 years, we probably, having done the calculation, realize that the monthly payments based on your income are going to be too high.
Yeah.
And based on your other expenses, we look at your debt service ratio and all of that, and we realize that perhaps, you know, a 6.5 million mortgage you really can't carry. Because we're going to give you the 6.5 million this month, and you start paying next month, and by month 2 you're going to be in arrears. We don't want a situation like that, and we don't want to put individuals in positions where, you know, they can't meet whether their obligations to the NHT and their other obligations as well. It has to be a balance. And so it's not just about income, it's about looking at, as I said, the interest rate applicable based on the income, looking at age as well. And we have a mortgage calculator that's on our website, nht.gov.jm. Individuals are free to go on at any given time, plug in their age, plug in, you know, their income, and it gives you a calculation as to how much you would qualify for each benefit type that the NHT has. Gives you an idea as to the repayment as well. So you have a good idea going to the market, knowing very well what you can afford.
Okay, so but what are you really looking for as it relates to expenditures in comparison to my income? Because what I do is, for myself, is that I set a budget and my expenses should never exceed more than 50% of my income. So whatever it is, it must be below that 50%. So I know there must be a number that you guys are looking for, that when I am ready to go to the NHT, I must make sure, say the party not gonna work and the shoes every month not gonna work. So I have to make sure I fall within that 50% before I come to the NHT. So what percentage are you guys really looking for?
Well, industry standard is that we look at a debt service ratio of 33.33%.
Oh, okay.
So once you're able to meet that debt service ratio, then but in addition to that, we also ask individuals to fill out an income and expenditure statement when it comes to the loan application process. So we know exactly going in what this individual can or cannot afford. Not to say that having approved someone for a loan and they get to loan interview and we realize that there's a shortfall based on expenditure, that we're necessarily going to terminate a loan. In fact, the NHT has different products, different additional policies that can assist that individual. So we have grants for our lowest income, lowest earning contributors, those individuals earning between minimum wage and $15,000 per week. Once they've contributed to the NHT for a minimum of 7 years, they're eligible for a home grant from the NHT. And a grant, as its name suggests, is
you don't pay back.
No, you don't pay back. That's up to $2.5 million. So, and there are other benefits as well. We find that we have programs and policies for individuals who are disabled. They get their mortgage at 2% below what they would normally qualify for. And in recent times, since April, we've extended that not just to the persons who are disabled, but to the parents of the persons who are disabled as well. Once they're registered with the Council for Persons with Disabilities, they get a 2% reduction in their mortgage. Individuals 55 years and over as well get a further 2%. So say you qualify for the highest income band, 4%. You're 55 and over, you automatically get a 2% reduction in your interest rate. If you're in the 2% income band, naturally you would come down to zero. If you're zero, you stay at zero. We don't go below zero. But just to say that it's not just looking hard and fast at income and age, and beyond that, the NHT has different enablers that seek to bridge the gap where affordability is concerned.
Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds really good to me.